Welcome to another episode of The Dissection. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi has resigned from the Economic Freedom Fighters. He made that announcement during an interview with the SABC. The progression of the story, if you haven't been following it, is that he was suspended off the record from the EFF before their policy conference and their leadership conference. He then resigned after that leadership conference from the EFF parliamentary benches. Now he has effectively resigned from the EFF and, as he put it, from party politics. So this is what he said about his status in political positions, organizations in South Africa at the moment. Here's what he had to say.
Do you still remain the member of the EFF?
I have taken a decision to step away completely from party politics. I'm leaving party politics. I think I've made my contribution in that space. We don't live in a one-party state. We're not in the camps. We're not a band. Politics are a free activity in South Africa. And party politics are not the monopoly of making social contribution. I think after this episode, I've taken a decision to leave all of party politics and contribute in the first instance to the academy. In the second instance, I'm very, very passionate about the upliftment of levels of discourse in the country. But most importantly, I think the terrain of struggle that has been neglected over the years is the civil society space. You know, it's time somebody did for the people of this country what AfroForum is doing for the Afrikaners.
So there you have it. I think it was important for Ndlozi to speak to the media, to explain himself. I have covered this story before, this developing story around Ndlozi and his relationship with the Economic Freedom Fighters and his positionality in South African politics more broadly. I said he needs to talk. And it looks like maybe he watched that episode of The Dissection and decided that he also needs to speak to South Africa. He has been keeping quiet for a very long time. And while that can sometimes protect you from attacks, I think it does do you a disservice as a politician, and it does a disservice to your constituency. I think it was necessary for him to speak to South Africans and the broader global community about his political moves, his decisions, and his thinking about the current political moment in South Africa and the world. Why? I think it was necessary for him to speak because he has a large following of his own, and some of the people within that following have committed time, energy, passions, money to supporting him and helping him in his political endeavors. So for him not to explain to those people and not to give any direction around his thinking, the things that have been playing out, would be a disservice and an abdication of his responsibilities to those particular people. You can't ask people to follow you wherever and then not give them any explanation once you get off the bus. If you say to people, let's get on the bus to Sandton from Braamfontein, and then at some point in the middle of the trip, you jump out at Rosebank or whatever the case may be, they have an obligation to say, but Chief, you said we're going to Sandton. Why all of a sudden are we jumping out of the bus? You have an explanation, an obligation to provide that explanation. I think it was necessary for him to do that. I also think at a higher level, it was also important for him to provide his thinking and reflection because he is a key academic in the South African political space. He has a PhD in politics from Wits University. Some of the things which are playing out would make people think about the Trotsky comparative between him and Julius Malema. Are you Trotsky? Are you somebody who is being pushed out of the far left political bus because you're a purist or you're not a purist or whatever the case may be? As a political academic, if you keep quiet, you are now silencing yourself at a moment when your thought leadership as somebody who has gone through undergraduate, honors, masters, and PhD, looking at these issues, being part of these debates is actually missing. You can't create that vacuum as a political leader at that level. So I think it was necessary for him to speak as an academic. I think it was necessary for him to speak because from his side as a political player, you still have to play the game and you still have to do the best to manage the narrative. Keeping quiet as a political player will not help you in politics and may even allow a narrative to cement about you before you can get a version out. Also, as the philosopher Karl Marx said, South Africa is a movie. We live in a drama. It's a series. Every day you'll be shocked by something new. We've even forgotten what shocked us 2 weeks ago. Karl Marx, in his book Das Kapital, was correct about South Africa being a movie. I'm just joking. I know it wasn't Karl Marx, it was Mqebo Dlamini, in case you didn't pick up on the joke. So, in as much as the joke is just a joke, it's true. The attention span in South African music, politics, media can be short. And if you keep quiet for too long, people may move on and accept the version that was given by your political rivals, your political opponents, by the media, by speculators, by commentators. So it's important for you to get into the chat and participate in the chat. I said that prior, I'm saying it now. He has now provided his version. So there's a big question that many people had. Did he know that Floyd Shivambu was living, and should he have spoken up about it? He did address this particular question and gave his version. I'm going to give you my thoughts after we listen to what he had to say about what he knew about Floyd, what were his political involvements, aspirations with the MK party, what did he think about everything, should he have spoken to EFF members. This is what he had to say.
Where have you been?
Well, I couldn't attend the conference of the EFF, the NPA, because over a dispute over my suspension. I was suspended about 6 weeks before the conference, and the suspension was unconventional in that it didn't rely on the code of conduct of the EFF summoned by its constitution. But largely the suspension rested on 2 counts.
Yeah.
On the one hand, the leadership said that it's in possession of an intelligence report in which they claim that I'm part of the infiltration strategy by the MKP. I'm working with the MKP. I'm planning to go to join them. I'm waiting for some opportune moment. The second one largely rested on the fact that I knew about the then Deputy President Floyd Shivambu's departure, and I didn't tell the leadership. Of course, I was told to stay at home, cease my participation in Parliament and the rest of the activities of the EFF. And so it was very important for me because they said that the investigation is still ongoing, and when the investigation is finished, I then would be given an opportunity to respond to these allegations. I think we can all agree these are dangerous and very serious allegations. At a later stage, the leadership argued that the report would only be ready after conference, and the matter has been referred to the leadership after the conference. It seemed fair for me to wait to clear my name in relation to these allegations so that I don't function with a dark cloud on my head or a gun on my face. As I said, we can all agree these are very serious allegations that one had betrayed the revolution, had been disloyal, and that indeed you are a double agent of some sort. Of course, I can state categorically now that I never planned to join the MKP. I still don't. I never worked with anybody in the MKP in relation to some conspiracy about my departure. And I think that whatever information they say they have was based largely on lies. Secondly, I did know about the departure of Floyd Shivambu. He did come to tell me of his consideration. And indeed, I did tell him that, look, you would have to take the leadership into confidence. And he did. The idea that I should have ran behind his back and informed other people or the leadership suggests that I'm an informant, a gossiper, or a wedge driver. I am none of those. It was Floyd's decision. He had to communicate it. It was not my decision. It was his. He had to communicate it, and he did.
Now, on the question of should Mbuyiseni Ndlozi have told Julius Malema and other leaders of the EFF whether or not Floyd Shivambu was contemplating joining the MK party? I think that he should have told them. His answer around, comparing it to Chris Hani or just saying that it was Floyd Shivambu's situation and that because Floyd didn't cross the political picket line, he didn't view it as being a betrayal or something that would constitute a betrayal. And that he said that the party was entangled. He said a lot aside from what he just said right now in the clip that I played you. But I actually think he should have spoken. A political party is not like a company. The moment in 2024 is different from other moments because right now there is a government of national unity. There are a variety of developments. The EFF is on the back foot. The MK is in ascendance. You saying, no, it's not my place to speak. I don't agree with that argument. I don't find it to be a genuine argument, to be honest, with all due respect. The resignation of Floyd Shivambu was not like a normal company resignation. It was something that was going to potentially destroy the EFF and something that was part of an attempted corporate takeover, hostile takeover rather, not a corporate takeover because it's not company stuff, it's politics. There was an attempt by the MK to get a series of people to leave the EFF at a critical moment so as to have the EFF actually say, no, we are just going to now become part of MK. It was a hostile takeover attempt, right? So it was supposed to happen in stages. Dalimpofu, Floyd Shivambu, Advocate Busiwe Mkhwebane, Mzwani Lemanyi, etc., to make it seem as if there's an avalanche, almost like a toppling or a falling of dominoes, the domino effect, pa, 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 pa. And then, boom, MK and EFF are one entity with Jacob Zuma at the top of that, so that now the impetus and the momentum then goes towards the MK side. That was something that was being attempted. This move had a potential to destroy the EFF, something that he helped build, something that he said he was a member of, a proud member of, an organization that he was fighting for and on behalf of in public had just been campaigning for. When an entity that you still hold shares and interests in is under attack, you do not keep quiet. You join the fight. The time when Floyd Shivambu made those moves, Ndlozi kept quiet. He held his cards to his chest. So this action, the action of silence, makes me believe that he was still trying to make a chess assessment about whether or not it would be appropriate or opportune for him to actually join the MK party, to actually put that final nail in the coffin, so to speak. But as he saw the turbulence within the EFF, that he wouldn't actually be able to retain his support base from the EFF, and maybe it would backfire in terms of him also being viewed as a betrayer and destroy his personal brand, I think that he then decided, no, I actually cannot take this move. So I do think he should have spoken, because this is an entity that is under attack. It's your entity. You should have told the leaders. You can't just say, I'm going to allow the organization that I'm part of, I'm building, I have a future in, to be destroyed by this guy who calls himself my friend and may very well be my friend, but I'm just going to keep quiet, let the destruction happen, and then remain in the organization. I don't think that is a genuine argument. I think it's the version that he's going to stick to. In the movies, there's often that phrase, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. I think this is his communication story, but I think that when we read between the lines, we can reasonably deduct that, he was in a position where he was looking at his moves, looking at his options. So I do think that the EFF people were correct to say, listen, you kept quiet when we were under attack. Julius Malema said, we will remember the silence of our friends most in times of attack. And I think that silence in and of itself, beyond the fact that you didn't tell them. So let's say we accept the version that it's not his place to say, I'm leaving, or to give a heads up. Although if he had given a heads up, the EFF would have been able to have a better risk management communication strategy than the one they had. But let's say we accept his version, not his place to share, not his place to tell the story. What about after he's made the announcement? If you're staying within the EFF and you're in good standing, you want to be part of the leadership of the EFF, isn't it your obligation and duty then even though you recognize that your friend is still within the same picket boundaries, but has now taken a hostile position to your entities, claiming to have built everything in the EFF, written the cardinal pillars, sliced the toast and put the toast in the toaster and put the butter on the toaster, and everything, came up with the logo, with the color theme, everything, which is what he was claiming. Why not at that point actually say, no, my friend, no, my brother, you made a contribution, but it wasn't just you, etc., etc. Why keep quiet? Look, I think Ndlozi has a lot of favor within the South African community. People look to him with respect, and they still like him a lot. But in spite of all of that, I don't think that I buy this particular argument and the way he said it. So in the last few days, he also showed that he's trying to spread his political constituency and his audience, because he tweeted very positively about Cyril Ramaphosa, and he actually spoke about President Cyril Ramaphosa in a positive way. This is what he had to say in the interview about Ramaphosa.
That because you felt some of what he is doing now is radical and perhaps progressive. So were you misled, and misled by who?
We grew up in the cycles of left-wing thinking, left-wing formations within the mass democratic movement. In those circles, President Cyril Ramaphosa is characterized as part of the wide South Africa's capitalist establishment. And the fact that he became a billionaire did not help. And certainly part of that discourse is that he will always act in the best interest of the white capitalist establishment. His emails in Marikana did not help because it characterized workers as criminals, justifying the action that then occurred, the Marikana massacre. The CR17 statements did not help to find the names of these capitalists who have funded his internal ANC campaign. But who would have thought one day, I would have never bet anything. I would have, if anything, if there was anything, I would have bet against the idea that one day it would be Ramaphosa who says, you keep your America and I will keep my South Africa, to the most powerful man in the world, together with the most richest man in the world, in defense of nil compensation. Of course, from our circles as radical left, it's not enough. The Expropriation Act doesn't go far enough.
Yeah.
But you're not just looking at that act. There's the Palestinian matter. President Ramaphosa's government did not just say two-state solution, didn't just condemn the Gaza bombardment by Israel. It stated that Israel is a genocidal state and took them to The Hague. No white puppet acts like that. Coupled with the Bella Bill, the NHI, and all these policies have really agitated and disrupted both domestic and global white capitalist establishment, let alone the imperialist forces. It is that credit that I'm giving it to him. The thing that he has broken with that statement that day was the idea that the sitting head of state in South Africa must always tiptoe and be diplomatic around white privilege and white interests. To speak like that, he broke a specific discourse, particularly from official state, types of traditional ways of speaking. He broke it. And for the first time, he was very clear that we're not going to be bullied. We're going to transform this country. Of course, the work has to go in, that there must be action to that effect. It is that credit that I was just basically accruing to that. And certainly I think that any logical person will be able to understand that because it doesn't come out of trying to whitewash him.
Yeah. So let's talk about this strategy, this new approach to him being a public figure and engaging in South African society in this capacity. Will this new strategy work for Ndlozi? What are the prospects for him on the streets, so to speak, with academic contributions, with the think tank, with civil society? Is it going to be impactful as an approach? I think yes, it is. So firstly, I think Ndlozi has credibility within academia because he holds a PhD in politics from one of the top universities in South Africa. He has written extensively. He's a good communicator. Even when he was in high school, he was a good communicator. So I think that because of those academic credentials, he has a lot of, room to build an academic think tank, to participate in civic conversations, to uplift the quality of debate, as he put it, in some discussions around politics in South Africa. So that in and of itself puts him in good stead to succeed in that respect. Number two, he now has a household name. His work with the EFF, his work in politics and parliament for over a decade has created for him a household name. One of the most difficult things to get in politics is a household name, to be known across the country by everyone, by little children as they run around the streets. He has one of those names, and having a household name in national level politics is very important. That household name and the likability that he has is going to help him in this particular journey. The other thing is that that likability, he's been the people's bae for a long period of time, and he remains the people's bae. The music that he has created, the recognition that he has in the cultural communities, in the streets, in the student communities, I think is going to help him in this particular respect. He understands the university scene and the mobilization of university spaces quite well. He was a student leader on campuses. He helped the EFF campaign on campuses across the years. He has vast networks as well outside of the university space. So he has crisscrossed the country campaigning for the EFF. He has an understanding of community mobilization. He would have had to work with civil society organizations in Black communities in particular in his work trying to campaign for the EFF in Gauteng, and for example, in the last election in Limpopo province as well, where he was put there for a while to put order in the EFF branches and structures. So he has relationships, he has the ground level expertise and knowledge of how to actually execute some of this stuff. He's also correct that there's a weakness in civil society, particularly civil society that looks at issues that affect the majority Black population, the poor populations, the rural populations, township and informal settlement populations. Civil society is strong in the urban and suburban areas in particular. You look at organizations such as the Helen Suzman Foundation, AfriForum, several other NGOs, very strong, very well resourced, and they have demonstrated that they can use the institutions of the courts, etc., to get preferential lobby positions, policy positions for themselves, such that even the president can be WhatsApped by AfriForum at a particular point to amend legislation, and he will suspend the implementation of that legislation by 3 months because he got an SMS from AfriForum. So this idea that he can form a Black AfriForum or some version of a Black AfriForum is one that I think will be something that has a lot of appetite and reception, particularly now when people are seeing the damage that can be caused by an entity such as AfriForum on the global stage, especially when they're unchallenged, speaking by themselves at conferences, etc. So Ndlozi actually has identified a weakness, something that he can uniquely contribute to addressing, not necessarily to the exclusivity of other people who have interests and also mobilization talents in those particular areas. But he has shown that, listen, I can actually go in and have an impact. I'm somebody who has the brand, the resources, the talents, the aptitude to be able to work in that space and make an impact. He has the respect of many people on the left in South African political circles, in civil society, on the streets, and that is likely to help him. This strategy, right, aside from everything I've said, will keep him on the political radar and allow him to retain some relevance in the South African political space. Because the ground is very, very, uncertain right now. He may, at a later stage, make peace with Julius Malema and the EFF and go back to the EFF. He may find some room within the ANC based on his kind words and reflection of Cyril Ramaphosa and those tweets. This could buy him some wiggle room. The reality is, the political environment in South Africa right now is very fluid. To stay in the game, it may be necessary to exit the fun stage, to keep your options open, and to wait for the right opportunity to make a move. That may happen for Ndlozi after the local government elections and the ANC conference. After local government and the ANC conference, that's when the ground will become very clear. Local government is 2026, ANC conference is December 2027. So if you're trying to see where the balance of forces, the power dynamics on the ground, you need something that will give you time, keep you busy, and allow you to be able to re-engage in January of 2028, well before the 2029 elections, but avoiding some of the hits that may arise from being involved in this stuff. The dynamics in MK are fluid. We've seen people getting fired several times, hired, fired. It's still something that is under the control of Jacob Zuma. Its prospects will really be crystallized in the 2026 local government elections. There's a lot of movement there. There's not a lot of space for him now. The EFF right now, he doesn't have a lot of reception that is good. It may very well be worthwhile for him to wait, see where things are in ANC, in MK, in EFF after the ANC conference in 2027, get re-involved. That would be the best time for him to get back in the game. This approach that he is taking allows him to keep his reputation intact. It allows him to maintain relevance within politics and civil society in South Africa, and it allows him to keep his options open. So for now, it looks as if this is where the story is going to end in terms of Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, the EFF, and MK is exiting front stage political party politics. He's going into civil society, into the academy. He may even show up in podcasts, speaking, talking to Penwell, talking to Sizwe Mpofu-Walsh. We'll see what his next contributions are. But I think this ends this political journey that he's been on in terms of mainstream politics, perhaps up until 2028. We'll see what happens. But that's what I think. I think he's going to come back at a later stage when he's assessed the balance of forces, when he's maybe spoken to other people. We've seen him speaking to various prominent people in South African society, already getting advice, trying to see how he's going to put things together. So we'll have to see where things end. But that's what he said. What do you think? Do you think he should have spoken about Floyd Shivambu to the EFF? Do you think that this is the right move for him? Are you a supporter and follower of Ndlozi? Would you go with him to another political party? Would you follow him if he formed his own political party? Let's have a conversation in the comments till the next one. Today, you're lucky. You got 2 episodes. 2. But it is what it is. I'm here. Let's have the conversations. Cheers.